Okay, what I put together here is a couple of rules to be applied when we're doing the longitude and the latitude calculations. In the previous video, we kind of showed you and tried to explain how to find your longitude and how to find your latitude, but what I thought I'd do is just explain it a bit more detail in a couple of rules. So, first rule we're looking at, if our personal time converted to universal lateral time is greater than UT 12, we will be west. So west is best. If it was less than, east is least. So they might say to you, you're in the -7 zone, which means you are actually east. Okay. What we need to then look at is how do we put all these numbers into a little formula. Okay, so if I look at this, and position that I am is the difference in time plus or minus the adjusted UT from the Perpetual Almanac. So in other words, UT is not always on the zero line. UT sometimes moves 2 degrees east and it sometimes moves 4 degrees west. So we need to find where it is according to the Perpetual Almanac on the existing day. So in this example, it is 001 degrees east. Okay. So I need to see what is the Meridian Passage from the Perpetual Almanac. So I've had to look up that. Okay, so I'm looking for the 12 o'clock time, which I can adjust into minutes, and I then make this correction right at the beginning. I would imagine you could probably make it right at the end. You could probably make it at the beginning, and I don't see it being too much of a difference, but I'll show you at the bottom where we've changed it. Here is my UT time, so I'm at noon, and the UT time is best. Okay, so I am in the west. The difference between the two means I am that much further west than the UT time. Okay, so what we've got here is 142 minutes difference. If I divide it by 4 minutes, if you remember 4 minutes equals 1 degree, I will end up with a line of 35 degrees, 0.5 degrees. Now, that's the same as saying 35 degrees and 30 minutes, because we don't use a decimal for the minutes in our lats and longs position. I need to subtract the adjusted position. So remember, opposites subtract. Same would be addition. Okay, and obviously take the higher number. So I found my position to be 034 degrees and 30 minutes west. If I now look at the rules that apply to latitude, we're going to have this the rule, if they're the same, it's to be added. If they're opposite, it's to be subtracted, with the dominant hemisphere being my actual position. So what we've got here in our first line as an example, we've got our sextant altitude. They use the word altitude, but it's the same as the angle from the horizon to the sun. That is that angle. I then have a sextant correction, which is correcting for dip, index error, and the lower limb of the sun, bringing it down. So what we've done here is we've just assumed a constant of 12 because we're talking about sailing vessels, all being about the same height off the deck, and not really being a big difference in. So we kind of rounded it off for the Perpetual Almanac. So my true altitude or angle is 72 degrees and 55 minutes. Now, okay, I now need to determine the zenith, which is, in other words, if the sun was directly above my head, but I'm seeing the sun at that angle, that is the difference that I'm trying to find, which tells me how far away I am from where the sun would be directly above, if you can bear with me there. So I've got 89 degrees and 60, which is the same as 90 up here. I take off that angle to find this angle, and I end up with 1705. Why is it north? Because I was told I was looking south, which means I must be north of the sun. Now I determine the latitude. So that's called my zenith distance, this number here. So I put my zenith distance in here. This dictates whether I subtract or add them. They're opposite, so I have to subtract them. This is the dominant number, so I am in the southern hemisphere. Okay, south or north, dominant number. I hope that helps to try and explain the calculation. Kind of went through the theory in a previous one, but this is trying to give you some formulas to work with.